Hey guys, welcome to your first project. In this project, we're going to build a basic website using Laravel. Now that may not sound like much, but we're actually going to touch on a lot of the different aspects of Laravel, such as routes, views, controllers, models, migrations, and so on. So this is the landing page. You can see we're using the Bootstrap layout here. We're using Laravel Mix to work with Webpack to compile our Sass. Okay, so we're going to be using Sass, which is a CSS precompiler. And we have the home page, we have the about page, and the contact. Now the contact form actually works. It's going to submit the data to the database, which you can see I have here in PHPMyAdmin. We have a messages table. If we look at that, you can see that we have the different submissions in there. So just to give you an example, let's say Harry Williams, and then email, we'll just say test@test.com, and we'll just say hello world. And if we submit that, you'll see we'll get a message. We're using flash messaging, and if I reload the database, you can see Harry Williams is in there. And we also have a route that we can go to, which is messages, and that'll pull all the messages from the database. Okay, the link isn't visible on the website because this would be something that an administrator would go to. Obviously, if this were a real world app, you would have some kind of admin login, but we're not going to get into that just yet. But I think overall this is a really good project for an introduction, and in the next video we'll get started. Alright guys, so we're going to start on our first project here, and this is going to be a basic website, but it's going to have some dynamic functionality. It's going to have a contact form that submits to a database. We're also going to pull those messages out of the database. We're going to look at routing, blade templates, things like that, controllers, models. So what I'm going to do here is in my htdocs, in my server, we're going to just do a composer, create project, Laravel /Laravel, and then we'll call it basic website. Okay, and that's going to generate a Laravel project for us. Alright guys, so the application is now generated, so I'm going to open up my text editor, which is Atom, and we're going to just add a project folder, and we're going to choose that basic website folder in the htdocs directory. Alright, so this is the structure for a Laravel application. Now it's changed a little bit since earlier versions of it. Instead of having a routes file, there's actually a routes folder, and web.php is where we supply our main routes. Alright, but before we get into anything, let's add a virtual host entry for this site. So you want to go to your Apache folder, conf extra, and then the vhost file, and I'm just going to copy this. We did that in the introduction section, and then let's change this to htdocs /basic website /public. All right, and then the server name, let's just say basic website.dev. All right, so we'll save that, close it up, and then we want to edit the host file. For that, we need to run a text editor in administrator mode if you're in Windows. So I'm going to search for Notepad and just do a run as administrator. All right, and then you want to just open up C drive, Windows, System32, drivers, etc, and let's show all files, and we want to open up hosts. And then in here we just want to do 127.0.0.1, and then basic website.dev. Okay, we'll save that, and let's restart Apache. Okay, and then let's go to basic website.dev, and there it is. Alright, so as I was saying, that this is the main routes file. You can see that the slash here, it's just loading up, slash, which is the home page, is just loading a view called welcome. And the views are in resources views, and you can see there's a welcome.blade.php. Blade is the template engine that Laravel uses by default, and this is what you're seeing here. Okay, it actually has all the styling within the markup here. And then here's the content that you see here. So we're not going to use any of this. What we're going to do is create a new home.blade.php file, and use that as our home page. And we also want to create a layout so that we don't have to repeat, all this crap, the head tags, body tags. That stuff's going to be on every view. So we want a layout that's going to just that we can extend that will have that stuff. So let's go to the routes, web.php in the routes. And for the home page, we can do whatever we want here. If we want to say return 123 and we save that and reload, it's just returning 123. You can load templates for our views from here like it was loaded in the welcome view, but you don't usually want to do that. What you want to do is call a controller method and then load the view from there. You don't really want to have any logic in your routes, okay? But for now, that's going to be fine, okay? But we'll change it later. So what I'll do is create some view files here in resources views. Let's say new file, and we'll call this one actually let's do home first. So home.blade.php. All right, then we'll create another one called about.blade.php. Let's create another one called contact.blade.php. So those are the 3 pages that we'll be using. All right, now in home.blade.php, let's just go ahead and put in, we'll just put an H1 and we'll say home. Okay, save that. And then if we go back to our route file, just like they did with the welcome view, we can just put in here home. And if we go and reload, you'll see it's going to give us that home view. And then if we were to copy this, paste that in twice, and then this one will say /about, and that's going to load the about view. And then this one will be /contact, and that will load the contact view. Okay, so we'll save that. Now this right here, get is specifying the type of request. So when you just visit a web page, you're making a get request to the server. So this is handling get request to this route or this URL. If this were a post request, for instance, submitting a form to add some data to the server, you would do route post. And you can use the same route with different request types, okay? But for now, we're just dealing with get. All right, and now let's go to about.blade, and we'll just put an H1 here and just say about, and then same with contact. All right, so now if we go to /about, we get the about template, and /contact, we get the contact template. All right, when I say template and view, I mean the same thing, really. Now, if we look at the source code, it's just an H1. There's no HTML tags or head or body tags, so we need to add those. But I don't want to repeat it in every single one of these views. So what we'll do is create a layout. So in the views folder, we're going to create a new folder called layouts. And then we're going to create a new file called app.blade.php. Okay, so this is going to be our main layout. So let's put in just some basic HTML tags. We'll put a title. Let's just say, actually, let's just call this Acme. And then in the body, where we want to render all of our templates, we want to do a yield. So we want to do this @ sign, and then we want yield, and we want to yield the content. All right, so we'll save that, and then let's go to our view files, for instance, home.blade.php, and we want to extend that layout. All right, so we can say @extends, and then we can actually just do layouts.app. So what this is doing here, it's going to look for a folder in the views folder called layouts, which we have, and then a file called app.blade.php, which we have. All right, so if I save that and we just go back to the home view, we see the H1, but if we look at the source code with a Control U, you'll see that it's outside of the actual markup from the layout. So to put that inside here, we want to put it in the content section, okay? Because if we go back to our layout, we're yielding content. All right, so let's go back to our home. and what we'll do is do an at section. Section is going to be content. Alright, and then we'll just go down here, and then we just need to end the section. Alright, so now if we save that and reload the source code, you'll see the H1 is now where it's supposed to be within the body tags. Alright, and we want to do this for all of our views. We want to extend layout and then put the section. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, and then we'll just change that to about. Contact, same thing. Okay, so now all of our views will have that that wrapper, that layout. Okay, you can see that's included. All right. Now let's say we wanted a sidebar here. What we could do is go to our layout file, and in here, let's see, we'll just go right under the yield for now, and let's say at section, and this section is going to be sidebar. Okay, and let's see, we want to, actually, you know what, we don't have to end it. So we just want to go right under it, and let's put in a div. We'll give it a class of sidebar, and we'll say this is the sidebar. And let's actually put in H3 right here. Alright, so let's save that. Now if we go back to, let's say, the home page, you can see this is the sidebar, and this is going to be on every page. So if we go to about, you'll also see it. Now we can append to this if we want on individual pages. So if we go back to the home page, let's go ahead and go under this section, and we're going to do again at section sidebar, and then we're going to do end section. So if we save that, okay, we get the same thing. Now let's go back to the layout appblade.php, and we just want to go right under here and say at show. Okay, and then let's go back to home.blade.php, and in here we'll put a paragraph. We'll say this is appended to the sidebar, and we'll save that and reload. And now, since we did that, the original sidebar is not showing, it's just the appended. So in order to show the parent, we just need to say at parent. And now if we reload, the sidebar shows and the appended content. Now this appended content should only be on the home page. So if we go to /about, you won't see it. Okay, so it's only on the home page. So that's how we can append to a section. Now some things you may want to put in a partial file or an include. So if we go to our app.blade.php, I want to put the sidebar markup into an include file. So in the views folder, let's create a new folder called inc, and then we'll create a file called sidebar.blade.php. And then what we can do is take this right here and cut it. Actually, let's take that as well, this whole thing, and we'll cut that and then put it in that sidebar file, save that, and then we can just include it here by saying include, and that's going to be in the inc folder. So we want inc dot and then the file name, which is sidebar. So let's save that, and we should get the same exact thing. Alright, so that's an include. So I think that that's a good place to stop. In the next video, we're going to start to add some content. We're going to create a nav bar, and I'm going to show you how to implement Bootstrap as well as Sass. Okay, Sass is a CSS precompiler that allows us to use things like variables and nested styles and all that. And it's really easy to do with Laravel. It's pretty much set up already. We just have to run a few commands. All right, so I will see you in the next video. Alright guys, in this video we're going to start to add some content, a menu and so on, but I want to show you how we can compile our assets. So Laravel 5.4 uses something called Mix, and right here it says Laravel Mix provides a fluent API for defining Webpack build steps. So if we open up in the root here, webpack.mix.js, you'll see this code here. And what this is doing is it's looking at the resources folder and then assets.js, app.js, and it's going to compile that down to the public version, which is going to go in this public directory right here, okay, app.js. Okay, if we look at that, it looks absolutely horrible because it's compiled and minified. All right, same thing if we look at public app CSS, same thing. So we don't want to touch this stuff, app CSS or app.js in the public folder. What we can do is use the resources folder. If we go to assets.js, app.js, you can see this looks much nicer, and it actually uses Vue, which is a JavaScript front-end framework. And then if we look in the Sass folder, there's an app.scss. This is where we can add our custom CSS and then compile it down. Okay, now you don't have to use Sass. You could just use regular CSS files. If we go down here, plain CSS, what you could do is use mix.styles and then put your actual CSS files there, and it'll concatenate them together and then include it. Okay, but we're going to use Sass. So the first thing we need to do is just run an npm install. Now npm is Node Package Manager, so you need to have Node.js installed. I don't, so I'm going to install it now. Okay, so go to nodejs.org. We're going to grab the recommended version. I already did. So let's just, oops. I'm just going to go to my downloads folder. Okay, and then right here, Node. And we're just going to go through this. Very simple. Just click next, next, install. And this will install Node.js, which is a JavaScript runtime environment. Basically, it allows you to have JavaScript on the server. And then also npm, which is used to install packages. Alright, so that's all set. Let's click finish. And then we should be able to use npm. So make sure you're in the basic website directory. And we're just going to say npm install. Oops. I think I have to restart this commander. Alright, so I'm just going to navigate back to that location. htdocs, basic website. Alright, let me make this bigger. So we're going to go ahead and run npm install. And that's going to set up all of the Node.js dependencies. Alright, which could take a few minutes. Now, when we do this stuff in future projects, I'm not going to really go, fully explain it because I don't want to be repetitive. So I'll just kind of do it and you guys can follow along. And what this is doing right now, if we look at the package.json file here, it's setting up all of these dependencies. Okay, Axios, which is an HTTP client, it's going to actually set up Bootstrap Sass, so we can use Bootstrap without having to go and download it and all that. Cross environment, jQuery, which obviously is the JavaScript library. Laravel Mix, which we're using now to compile assets. Lodash, which is _JS, and then Vue, which is a front-end library or framework, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it's setting up all that stuff right now. Now, when we, for instance, add something to app.scss to the Sass file, or we change something from the variables, we have to run npm run dev. Okay, and that will basically compile everything we do. Now, if you don't want to have to keep running that command, you can do npm run watch, and it'll just kind of sit there and wait for changes in the SAS files and then compile them down to the CSS. All right, and it's pretty cool. If we look at this variables file, we can easily change, for instance, the background of the body. These are all variables. We can change the color of the, the context, like primary, info, success, all that stuff. Fonts, the navbar background, and we can also add our own variables and use them in the app SCSS file. All right, so it's pretty cool. All right, guys, so that took quite a while, a few minutes at least, but it did a lot. So now what we can do is we can go into app.scss and we can add styles here. We could create another SAS file and just simply import it like they did with variables. And I think that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and say new file underscore, and we'll just call this custom.scss. All right, and then we can just simply import it. So we'll just copy that, and let's put this down at the bottom, and then we'll say custom and custom. You don't need to include the underscore. It knows that that is basically a partial that we're going to include or import. So let's save it, and we need to go to our index file, or I'm sorry, not our index file, but our layout, which is app.blade.php, and we need to link the public CSS. Okay, so we want this to go to css/app.css. Okay, it automatically knows to look in public, so if we go here, it's including this file, which is the CSS that's compiled from everything. Okay, Bootstrap, the variables file, the custom file we just created, it's all going to get compiled into this. So if we go back to our application and reload, you'll see that the style has changed, okay, because it's implementing Bootstrap, because we're including it right here in the app.scss file, and also the variables and the custom. So if we go to, for instance, variables, and for the body background, just to test it out, let's put in black and save it. Now, right now, it's not going to take effect because this needs to be compiled. So if we go back to our command line here and we say npm run dev, that's going to basically compile everything. All right, so that compiled. Now if we go back to our site and reload, and it might take a couple seconds, you can see that the background is now black. Now if you don't want to have to keep doing that, you can just do npm run watch, and basically it's just going to watch for your updates. Okay, so now you can see it's watching, it's not going back to our prompt. So now let's change it back to what it was and then save, and it should automatically compile, okay, because we're watching for it. So my advice would be to just keep this running while you're in your development, and you can simply, edit your SAS files. So let's close that up. That's all we're going to need for now. Next thing I want to do is add a navbar. So let's go to getbootstrap.com, and we'll go to getting started and then examples, and I'm going to click on the starter template here and then do a Control U, and we can just grab this nav tag here. This is usually what I do instead of just typing it out. So we'll grab that, and let's go to our application, and I'm going to put this in its own include file. So in the inc folder, we'll say new file. We'll call this navbar.blade.php, and then just paste this in. Okay, we'll save, and then we want to include this in our layout. So let's go back to layouts, and we're going to put this right below the body tag, and we're going to say include navbar. Okay, let's go back. What's this? Oh, I need to do inc.navbar because it's in the includes folder. And there we go. There's our navbar. Now the content is underneath it because we need to go and remove this navbar fixed top class right here. We'll just get rid of that. And then let's change the project name to, we'll just say Acme. And then home, which will go to slash. About will go to slash about. And contact will be slash contact. And for now, I'm going to get rid of the active class. All right, so if we reload, now you can see the content is out from underneath it. And we can also navigate to about and contact. So what I want to do now is put the sidebar where it's supposed to be. So we're going to use the Bootstrap grid system. So let's go back to the layout file. And what I'll do is, put in a div here. And this is going to be our row. And then we'll do call MD8, call LG8. So it's going to be an 8-column div. And then I'll copy that. That will be the main content, and then this will be the sidebar. This will be a 4-column div. So now what we need to do is just grab the content, put that in here, sidebar, we'll put that in here. All right, and let's see. I also want to wrap. Actually, no, that should be fine. What we do need to do is wrap this row in a container. So let's say div class equals container, and that's going to wrap everything. Alright, so let's save that. And now the sidebar is where it should be, and everything's inside of the container. Let's give the sidebar a well class to give it kind of a background and border. So let's go to our sidebar partial file here. And instead of the class of sidebar, I'm going to call it class of well. Reload, and now it's inside of a well. Okay. Now, if you want the appended content to go outside of that well, we can just move show down to here. And now it's outside of it. Okay. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some content to the home page. So home.blade. I'm just going to go right into the H1. And let's put a paragraph. And then I'm going to type in lorem and then tab. And that's going to give me some sample content. So you can do this in Atom as well as Sublime Text. Okay, so that will just add some content here. And then for about, we can do the same thing. Change it up a little bit. Okay, it really doesn't matter what you put. Alright, so now we have home, about, good. So for a contact, we're going to want a form, and we're going to use something. We're going to use a package called Laravel. What is it? Laravel Collective. So we're not going to get into that just yet. Now, one thing I want to do before I go is I want to create the showcase area, or the Jumbotron. So let's go to the inc folder. I'm going to create a new file here, and we're going to call this showcase.blade.php. And then let's just put in a div, and this is going to have a class of Jumbotron and also text center. And in here we're going to have a container div. Okay, and inside here let's put an H1, and we'll just say welcome to our site. Oops. And then under that we'll have a paragraph, and I'm going to give that a class of lead, which will just make it a little bit bigger. And we'll say welcome to our brand new Laravel powered website. and we'll say this site uses Laravel version 5.4. Alright, and then we'll save that. So we need to include it in our app.blade.php, just like we did with the nav bar. So let's see, where do I want to put it? Let's just put it right under the container here. Okay, and then we'll just change that to showcase. And there it is. Now, one thing we can do in Blade is we can add logic, okay, such as if statements. So what I'm going to do here is go to our, where do I want to go? Yeah, right here. And we want to wrap this include in an if. So we'll do @if, and we can use this request object. So request :is, and we can test for the route. So we want to say if this is at /, then include the showcase. Okay, then we'll do end if. So let's save that and reload, and still there. If we go to about, however, or contact, it's not there anymore. So we can specify what content we want on which page. And then I also just want to add a footer. So let's go in the layout file. We're going to go under the container div, and let's say footer, and I'm going to give this an ID of footer and also a class of text center. Alright, and in here we'll just put a paragraph that'll say copyright 2017, and we'll put the ampersand copy semicolon, which will give us that copyright symbol, and we'll just say Acme. Alright, now I want to add a little bit of styling to it, so I'm going to go to that custom CSS file we created, and here we'll say ID of footer, and I want to add a margin top of, let's say, 30 pixels, and let's see, padding, we'll say 20 pixels, color will be white, and background will be really dark gray. Okay, we'll save that, and since we have this watching, you can see it got compiled successfully. It even gives us a little notification down here, and if we reload, we get nothing. Why is that not changing? Let's see, footer. It should work. Oh, there we go. I did a control F5 to clear the cache. Alright, so that's good. Now in the next video we're going to start to add the contact form, and we'll also start to get into some more dynamic stuff with controllers and models and all that. Hey guys, in this video we're going to create our contact page, and we're going to use a package called Laravel Collective, which is used for a couple things, but it's mostly used for HTML and forms. You can see it's an option in the docs here. And this is laravelcollective.com. Now this is for version 5.3. So what I'm going to do is just change that to 5.4. Oh, they don't have the docs yet. Okay, so that's fine. I mean, most of this stuff is the same anyways. So to install it, we're going to use Composer. Okay, so we want to run this here, except we want 5.4. So let's open up Commander or whatever terminal you're using. Now I still have this watching for assets, so what I'm going to do is just open a new tab here. Whoops, what did I do? New console, start. Okay, and then I just need to navigate to that folder, which is xampp/htdocs/basic website. Okay, so from here I'm just going to copy that, paste it in, and I'm just going to change it to 5.4. And that should work. Alright, while that's going on, we next need to add a new provider to the config file. So we want to grab this right here, copy that, and then go into the config folder, and app.php. Okay, and then let's go down to where the providers are. Figures it's down at the bottom. So these are the providers, and I'm just going to go to the last line here and paste this one in, okay, the collective. So make sure you save that, and then let's go back over here, and we need to add these two aliases. So let's copy those, and the same file, we're going to go down to aliases and just go to the last line here and paste those two in. Alright, and then save, and we should now be able to use it. So opening a form, we would use this syntax, okay? So the double curly braces and then the double exclamations, okay? And then to create fields, let's see, fields, we would do something like this. So form text and the name and so on. So let's create the form first. So I'm going to grab these. And let's go into, let's see, resources, views, and we want contact.blade.php. And what we'll do is make sure that that's copied and paste that in. So this is basically going to give us the opening and closing tag for the form. And then the URL that we want to submit to, we're going to change that to, let's say, contact/submit, and we'll have to create a route for that. And then in here we want to put the different fields. So we're using Bootstrap, so I'm going to put a div here with the class of form group. Okay, and then in here let's create a label, which we can see, let's see, right here. So this will put, now you can use your PHP tags in here and you can echo out this stuff, or you could just use the double curly brace, which is what we're going to do. So if we do double curly brace and paste that in, that should give us the label. Okay, and then for the actual input, let's grab this, paste that in. So this is going to be a text field, and this is actually going to be the name. Actually, you know what? Let's keep it as email, because that we are going to need an email too. So what I'll do is copy this whole thing, paste that in, and then this will be the name. Alright, so let's save that and just see if it's working. If we go to contact, and there it is. We have our fields and labels. Doesn't look very good, but we'll fix that. And then the last field we're going to want is the message field. So let's go ahead and paste this in. The label will say message, and we'll just say enter message. No, actually this will just be message, and then this will be enter message. Okay, because that's the placeholder. Alright, now we don't want this to be just a regular text field. We want it to be a text area. So right here we can say medium text. Or maybe that's not right. Oh no, text area, never mind. There we go. Now, if we want to add a class to any of these, what we can do is, for the text right here, we're going to put in an extra parameter, and this is going to be the value. Okay, if we wanted to insert a value here, we could do that, but this is going to be blank, and then the next one is going to be an array of options, and one of those options can be the class. So we're going to say class is going to be form control, which is a Bootstrap class. So if we go ahead and save that, let's see, illegal string offset name. What did I do here? What the hell? Oh, this is, we don't want this here. Well, actually we can keep it there, but we'll get rid of that. Okay, because this, I guess, is being looked at as the value. So let's try that. There we go. Oh, so that's not a placeholder, it's actually the value. So I don't want that. I don't want anything in there. Same with these. I mean, I guess if we want, we could put a placeholder here like this. Actually, that needs quotes. And then we can point that to enter name. Let's see if that works. Yeah, okay. So that's that. And then what I'll do is just copy this, basically this associative array, and put one here. And this will say enter email. And then put one here. And this will say enter message. Okay, so now if we go and reload, now that looks pretty good. So now we need a submit button. And I'm just going to put that in a div. We don't need a class though. Okay, and then we can say double underscore form submit. And in here, let's say submit. And let's also give this a class. So we want to put in our associative array and say class is going to be btn and btn primary. Okay, reload, and now we have our submit. All right, so when we submit it, obviously this isn't going to be found because we haven't created this route. So let's go to our routes folder and then web.php, and we need a route here. So this is actually going to be a post since we're submitting a form, and then this is going to be, yeah, post, and then in here let's put the route we want, which is contact/submit. And what we want this to do is go to a controller function. So we're going to have a controller called messages controller. All right, and we want it to go to a function inside that class, which will be called submit. Okay, so messages controller submit function. So let's save that. And this isn't going to work yet because we haven't submitted the wait a minute. Oh, this should be in single quotes. Okay, so it's saying messages controller doesn't exist, which is what should happen. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and in the next video we're going to talk about controllers. We're going to create the messages controller and handle that submission. All right, guys, in the last video we created a contact form with Laravel Collective, and we're submitting it to, if we look at our routes file, we're submitting it to a messages controller and then a function or method called submit. So this doesn't exist yet, this controller, and where controllers go is in the app folder and then HTTP and then controllers. And you can see we have this, I guess this base kind of controller that that we need to extend when we create other controllers. There's also some authentication stuff in here by default, but we're not going to deal with any of that. What we want to do is create a new controller. So to do that, we can use a tool called Artisan. Okay, so we can run PHP Artisan commands to do tons of different things. To do create controllers, create models, database migrations, all kinds of stuff. So what we're going to do is pull up the command line, and let's clear this out. And we're going to create a controller. So we'll say PHP Artisan, and then we want to do create : controller. I'm sorry, it's not create, it's make controller. Okay, and then after that we want to put the name of the controller, which is going to be messages controller. All right, so it was created successfully, and now if you look in our controllers folder, we have messages controller. Okay, now up at the top here it gives us this, it says namespace. This basically means that this class belongs in the controllers. Okay, so app HTTP controllers. And then this here, when we say use, it means that we want to pull something out and use it. And illuminate basically you can kind of think of this as Laravel. So we're going to take it from Laravel out of HTTP request. Okay, and this basically allows us to handle requests. All right, so if we're routed to a controller method and there's a parameter attached, an ID or something, we can use the request to get it. Okay, then we're just defining the class here and we're extending controller. Okay, anytime you create a controller, you need to extend this core controller. So if we look in the routes, we're submitting this to a function or a method called submit. So let's create that. We'll say public function submit. Okay, and public just means that we can access this from outside of the class. So for now, let's just say return 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go back to our contact page and let's submit it, and you'll see that it's just returning 1, 2, 3. So we know that this function is being called. Now, in order to access the contact fields, the data that's typed in here, we need to use this request. Okay, so in the submit, we're going to pass in request and then the variable that we want, which is request. Okay, and then we can access these fields by saying request input, and then in here you want to put the name, the form name, which will get the name field. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that, and we'll just type in test for the name and submit, and we get test. So that's how we can access these fields. Now we want to do some validation because we don't want, for instance, no name to be, right now we can submit it even if there's no name, and I don't want that. I want these fields, at least the name and the email, to be required. Now when we use a controller that's extending this core controller, we have all the methods and properties, anything that's available in the core controller we can use, and there's something called validate. There's a method called validate that we can use. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this, okay, meaning this class, and then the function we want is validate. All right, and then in here we just want to pass in request and then an array, an associative array with the field we want, which is name, and then the rules, or rules can be more than one, but we just want required. All right, and then we'll say email also required. Okay, and then down here let's just return, we'll just return success. Okay, and now if we go back and reload and we submit, what's this? Just expected, let's see, name, oh, I need a comma right here. Okay, so we'll resubmit, and you'll see that it's not returning success. It's not moving past this point because this isn't okay. If I were to put stuff in here, then we could submit. Now, we need a way to let the user know what's going on, because right now it's just not doing anything. And when this runs, it actually puts out the errors. We just need to basically catch them in our template or in our view. So what we'll do is go to app.blade.php and figure out where we want to put these messages, which I think should go right above the main content, so right here. And we can say if count, which is a function that'll just count errors. We want to say, yeah, errors, and if that is greater than 0, so if the errors are greater than 0, whoops, then we want to do a for each loop and basically loop through these errors. So let's do at for each, and we're going to say errors all as error. All right, and then we have to end the for each. And in here, what we want to do is display each error. Now I want to display it in a div, and we're using Bootstrap, so I'm going to say alert and then alert danger, which is going to make it red. And then in here we just want to spit out the error. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that and submit, and now we get our errors. The name field is required, the email field is required. Now I don't like having all this stuff in my template itself or in my layout, so I'm going to create an include here called messages.blade.php, and any errors or messages I want to be in this file, and then we'll just include it. So let's grab this and we'll cut that out, and then we'll just put include, and that's going to be inc.messages. Okay, and then we'll go and paste this in here, and we should be all set. If we submit, still works. Alright, so that's validation. Now what we want to happen when we submit this in our controller, we want to call a model, a message model, and then insert it into the database. So we don't have a database yet. We haven't created one. So in the next video we'll create the database, we'll set up the model, and I'll also introduce you to migrations. Alright guys, so in the last video we set up our messages controller and we're submitting the form to it. We added some validation. Now we need to take care of the database. We want this contact form to submit this stuff to the database. So we're going to use phpMyAdmin to basically create the database and look at the data and so on. So let's go to localhost/phpMyAdmin, and if you're using XAMPP you should automatically have this. If you're not, then go ahead and install it and get it set up. Alright, or I mean, you don't have to use this. You could use the command line if you know what you're doing. So let's go to databases and let's create a new one. We'll call this a basic website create, and that's pretty much all we need to do here. We're not going to have to insert the data here. We're going to create a migration for that. Okay, migrations are basically they allow you to interact with the database, whether it's creating tables or inserting data or deleting tables or columns, whatever it may be. You want to do that through migrations, not through phpMyAdmin. We're strictly using phpMyAdmin to see what we have in the database. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and create the model. So let's go to the command line and we're going to do php artisan, just like we did make controller, we're going to do make model. Alright, and then the model name is going to be message. Okay, your models should be singular and your controllers should be plural. Now there's an extra option I want to add here, and that's -m. What that'll do is it'll create the migration file for us so that we don't have to create it ourselves. Alright, so let's go ahead and run that, and you'll see that in the app folder we now have a message.php. This is the model. Okay, it may be a little confusing because there's no models folder. They're just kind of put right in the app folder. Alright, now the migration, if we go to the database folder, you'll see a migrations folder, and there should be 3 files in here. One is to create the users table, and one is to create the password resets table, and then one is to create the messages table. So these 2 are actually included with Laravel by default. Okay, we don't have a users table yet because we just created the database, but once we run migrate, all of these files in here are going to run. Now this application isn't going to need the users table or password resets, but I'm just going to leave them there and let them get created. Alright, and then this one here is the one that we need to look at. This is what we created. Basically, a migration has 2 main methods, up and down. Up is going to run when you run the migration in Artisan, and what this is going to do is create a table called messages. It's going to add an ID field, which will be auto increment and primary key, and then it's going to add a couple timestamp fields, created at and updated at. And then down is going to run if we decide to roll back the migration, if we change our mind and we want to drop the messages table. Alright, now I do want in here, we want to add a couple more fields to this table when it's created. We want the fields that the form has, which is name, email, and what's the other one? Message. So we just need to do table, and then the type, this is going to be a string, and this is going to be the name field. Okay, and we'll do the same thing for email. And for message, now message I want to be a little longer. So instead of string, we're going to use medium text. Okay, there's long text, medium text, and then the down is fine because it's just going to drop the whole table if we roll back. So that should do it. Let's go ahead and save this, and then what we want to do is run the migration. So we say PHP artisan migrate. Oh, we didn't add our database parameters yet. So to do that, you want to go to the .env file and go to where it says MySQL and put the database name, which in my case is basic website, the username, which is root, and then the password, which is 1 through 6 for me. Make sure you put your own information in here, and we'll save that. And then let's see, I think we're going to get another error. Let's just run. Yeah, so this right here is I guess it's a bug, this syntax error, access violation. It says that this 1071 specified key was too long. Now to fix this, let me actually copy this. Alright, and whoop, I didn't mean to do that. But I'm going to just search for this because there's a page, I think it's the first one here. Tells us what to do. Yep. So we actually have to go into, let's see, what file is it? I think it's the app provider file. So if we go over here to app and then providers, app service provider.php, there's a boot method. We just want to grab this right here. And we need to put that in. And in order to use the schema, we have to put this in right here. Alright. And save. And now we should be able to do the migration just fine. So again, we'll do PHP artisan migrate. Table users already exists. Oh, so it did create the users table and then it hit the error. Okay, so you'll see there's a users and migrations table. What I'm going to do is just completely drop those and then run it again. Alright, so now it created everything. Let's go ahead and look in here, and we have users, password resets, migrations, and our messages table. Migrations just basically keeps track of all the migrations that you do. But if we look in messages and we go to structure, you'll see we have an ID field, a name, email, message, created at, and updated at. So that's our table for the messages. Now what we want to do is in the controller, we want to submit to the model and to the database. Now to use the message model, we need to include it up here. So we're going to say use app and then backslash. Make sure you do a backslash. I know that confuses some people. It's the slash right above your enter or return key. And then we want the model name, which is message. Okay, use app / message. And now when we do our submission, instead of just returning success, we're going to create a new message. Alright, so first thing we'll do is create a message variable, set it to new, and then the model name, which is message. Now this is actually Eloquent. This is a Laravel database library. You can do straight up SQL statements, but in most cases you won't. Eloquent is a much, well, more eloquent way to do it. Alright, so we're just going to say new message, and then we can assign each value. So let's say message name, and that's going to equal what's entered in the form. So remember, we can get that with request input name. Alright, we're just going to do the same for the other fields. Okay, so this one will be email, then this one will be message. Alright, and then all we have to do now is save it. So we'll say save message, and we can do that by simply saying message save. Alright, and then after that, after it's entered into the database, we want to redirect. Alright, so let's say return redirect, and let's go back to the home page. Alright, so let's save, and now let's see if this works. Okay, so we'll go to our contact page, we'll say John Doe, email address, oops, and message, we'll say hello, I need a website. Submit. Redirects us back to the home page. Let's take a look at the database now. In the messages table, we'll click browse, and there he is. And you can see the ID was put in automatically, as well as the created and updated at. Alright, now the last thing I want to do here is show you how to use flash messages. So after we redirect, I want a message to say that your message has been submitted. Alright, so what we'll do is down here where it says where we redirect, we want to just add on to this, and we'll say with, and then status, and we'll say message sent. Alright, now this by itself isn't going to show anything, but it's going to give us access to the message. So what we have to do is output it in our view, and I'm going to use the message, where is it, the message include. So in views inc, and then messages.blade.php, and we'll go right under where we did the errors, and we'll do an if. We'll say if session, whoops, if session status, actually instead of status, let's put success. Okay, and then if session success, and in here what we'll do is loop through. Actually, no, we don't have to loop through. We can just put a div, and we'll give it a class of alert, and alert success, and then in here we can just do session success. Okay, that should work. So let's go back to contacts. We'll send in another one. Let's say Mark Smith, msmith@yahoo.com. Hello, how are you? And submit. And there we go. We get our message sent alert or message. And if we go to our database, there's Mark Smith. Alright, so we can now submit data to the database. So in the next video, which I believe will be the last, I just want to have a page where we can actually see the messages that are sent. Now, if this were a real application, you'd probably have a login system and have that blocked unless you log in. But we're not going to get into that stuff just yet. But I do want to show you how to fetch data from the database. Alright, so we'll get into that next. Alright guys, so we can now submit the contact form, and the data does go in the database. Now what I want to do is create a new route and a new controller method to get the messages from the database and then output them, okay, into a route. So let's go into our messages controller, and let's create a new function. So we'll say public function, and we'll call this get messages. Okay, so in this get messages function, we're going to set a variable, and this is, you'll see how easy this is with Eloquent. So we'll say messages equals, and then the model, which is message, and then we can just do a double colon all. Okay, and that simple line is going to get all the messages from the database and put them into this variable. And all we need to do is return a view and then pass that data to the view. So we'll say return view messages. Okay, we're going to have to create that. And then to pass the data, we can just do with messages and then the actual data, which is in that variable messages. And that's that. So let's save it, and then we're going to create a new route. So let's go to routes web.php, and we'll just copy that. And then let's see, right here we'll say messages. It's going to be a get request, and we want to set this. I'm just going to copy this actually. All right, so then messages. Okay, that's going to be get, and that's going to be set to messages controller and then get messages. All right, we'll save that. And now let's go to our views folder and create a new file called messages.blade.php. I realize we already have a file with that name, but that's in the includes folder. All right, now what I'll do here is just copy what we have in the home. All right, and then we'll just change this to messages. And let's see, we'll get rid of that paragraph. And what we want to do is loop through the messages that are being passed in. So for that, let's first check to make sure there are any. So we'll do if, and then let's do count. Oops, that should have a money sign. It's a variable. If count messages is greater than 0, then we want to loop through with a for each. Okay, so we'll say for each messages as message. Okay, make sure you end that for each as well. Oops. Okay, and then in here what we'll do is display, let's do a UL, and I'm going to give it a class. I'm going to give it a class of list group. And then we're going to put some li tags with the class of list group item. And in here, we'll say name, and then we should be able to do message name. All right, we'll do that for the other fields as well. So we'll copy that. And this one will be email. So that'll be message email. And then this one will be the actual message text. Alright, so let's save that, and then we're going to go to /messages, and there we go. We have John Doe's message and info as well as Mark Smith. So we're just about there. The last thing I want to do is I don't want to load the view from the routes file. That's not good practice right here. So we'll create controller methods for all of these, all three of them. So let's go to controllers, and we're going to create a new controller called pages controller. So let's go to our terminal here, and we'll say PHP artisan pages controller. Whoops, we have to do make controller as well. Alright, and that should actually be in uppercase. Alright, so that'll create that, and then what we'll do is we'll create a function here, so public function, and let's call it get home. Okay, and then all we want to do here is we just want to load the view. So the same thing we did in here, we can just return the view. Okay, and we'll do the same for the other two pages. So this one will be get about. That's going to load the about view, and then get contact. That'll load the contact. Okay, so now we'll go back to our routes. And instead of doing that, we're going to do what we've been doing down here and just use a controller method. So slash is going to go to pages controller, and then it's going to call get home. Alright, and we'll do the same for about and contact. So this one will be slash about, and then this one will be slash contact, and that'll call the get contact method. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload, and we should get the same. Yep, good. Oh, you know what? One other thing I wanted to do is the active class for whatever page we're on. So let's go back, let's go to the navbar include. Alright, and then what we'll do is use the same logic we used for the showcase. We have the, where is it? Right here, request is. Okay, so we'll look at what route we're on and then put the active class depending on that. So let's go to the first li here, and we'll say class equals, and for this we're going to put in double underscore request double colon is, and then the route, which is going to be slash. Okay, if that is true, we're using shorthand syntax here. If that's true, then this class is going to be active. If it's not, then it's going to be blank. Okay, so we can use that for all of these. Okay, and then this one will be slash about, and then this one will be slash contact. So let's try that out. Okay, you can see it's highlighted. Go to about. That didn't work. Oh, I think we just need to remove the slash here on those two. There we go. Alright, so now that's working. So that's going to be it for this project, guys. I realized that this was kind of a lot for the first project. Usually I don't do you know, work with the database and all that in the first project, but I think it gave you a pretty well-rounded look at Laravel. So you know, in the coming projects we're going to get more advanced, and we're going to do more stuff with databases and migrations and authentication and all that. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next project.
Hope you've liked the video. We'll soon be reaching out to you with some more stuff. So don't forget to like, subscribe and recommend our videos to the other coders out there.